I don't understand why football hasn't recognised this. I don't understand why current players and players of my generation haven't got back behind this campaign as they should have done, because we saw the testing, University of Glasgow, Willie Stewart, and the facts are, if you've played football, you're 3.5 times more likely to get neurodegenerative disease, and that can be Alzheimer's, it could be dementia, it could be motor neuron disease, and Parkinson's. So that is a consequence of heading the football. And when you actually think about that for a moment, why isn't football getting behind this? Why is there not been more money given for research, with all the money which there is in the game? Because it's killing people. It's killing people, and the effect it has on the families as well is so great. I know the effect it's had on me personally, and my mum, and I know the death which my dad is dying is, it's a horrible way for him to end his life. And all we're saying is, okay, well, it's not going to save my dad. It may not save me. I don't know. I may get it. I don't think about it. But I know with these precautions, if they're put in place, I know that it will probably save my sons and my daughter, who plays football, and it will probably save future generations. It is reducing the risk, and that's the key. We are not saying ban heading in football matches. We are saying just reduce heading in training, 20 headers max in training, 48 hours in between. And this isn't something which I have thought up myself. This is something with the backing of Willie Stewart, who actually knows the damage which heading does to the brain.
You mentioned Nobby Stiles there, and we see sort of famous examples. It's the issue here that for every famous example and for every big name, there's probably another family suffering, someone who made 50 appearances, 60 appearances for their club, or the scale of it is potentially big.
Yeah, I think that that's an excellent point, because we are talking, and this is always what happens with this dementia debate, is it's when a high profile name is affected. Dawn Astle, who's been a furious campaigner for this, she put out on social media the other week, well, what about the other families, the other players who aren't big names? Why aren't they, they're not getting looked after? So this is across the board.
And there's the players, which we know about and we've mentioned themselves, but behind all the players and the players are the players' families, who often end up bearing the brunt and the worst of this disease, because it is the cruelest of diseases.
Yeah, I think that there's a perception about dementia that it's just somebody forgetting the car keys or mislaying the glasses case. It isn't, it isn't like that. I mean, the stage my dad is at is indescribable, really. How he spends his days, the weight which is lost, the fact he can't toilet properly. He lies on a bed in a nappy, and I defy anybody, if that's a member of their family, not to be heartbroken by that, and the effect that's had on my mum. And I don't know whether you read the article she did in the Daily Mail. There was stuff in there about her feeling suicidal, which was tough for any son to see. But do you know what? I think reading that, I could understand that. I can understand how she feels, because it's her husband, and when you read things like that, I think everybody's the same. They would understand the effect it has on me and my family, and I understand the effect it has on other families. But this isn't isolated. It's not just my mum and dad. It's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of players who've been neglected. And that's, I'm not making these numbers up. It's out there. And they're dying in the most undignified manner. But the effect it has on the families, and the families aren't getting enough support. And when I mean enough support, I'm talking about my dad had to go in a care home because my mum couldn't look after him well enough, because my dad would toilet at different areas of the house. He would get out of the house. She had to double lock the doors. It was destroying her life. It was 24-hour care, and she was at the end of a tether. And then there was the odd violent episode. It's like looking after a baby. That is, it became impossible for her, which is why ultimately he's in a care home now, and there are wives who are in the same position, who are struggling to look after their partner 24 hours a day, because that's what it needs, 24 hours a day care. And all we're saying is, can they be given a break for a few hours a day, and can there be funding given towards that? I don't think that is unreasonable at all. And when you sit and think about that, and any person out there whose family have suffered from dementia and Alzheimer's and the latter stages will know what I'm talking about.
Is some of the most painful bit for you that potentially that situation with your dad it was avoidable? Had we known about this, or had there been more knowledge? Is that what sort of gets to you? I mean, obviously the situation itself is heartbreaking.
The testing is, well and truly underway now. There's plenty of research being done, but it missed a decade. It's not going to, it 100% will not save my dad. It may not save me, but it might save somebody further. Well, it will save lives further down the line, and that's the long and the short of it. And all we're asking is for people to get behind this charter, whether it's local clubs, youth clubs, whatever it is. And I look at it simply. If I knew when I first started, or when I first got into the game in my teenage years, and when I was heading balls at Norwich City as a youth team player in the afternoons, because I wanted to be a professional player and get a professional contract, totally committed to it. If I knew what back then what I knew now, I would not 100% have headed the volume of balls, which I wouldn't have done, and I wouldn't have expected, or I wouldn't have expected the coach back then to actually do training drills, which we did back then. That has to change. Coach education is extremely important, because the bottom line is this will save lives. I don't worry about my own health, and that might sound blasé, because there's no point in worrying, because what's going to happen is going to happen to me. I just hope we can make great strides, with the research, dementia research. But the biggest thing is for people to sit up and wake up. The Mail campaign, Daily Mail campaign, enough is enough, and that says absolutely everything for me. And it's important. I've been here so many times before. Same old faces, Dawn Astle, John Stiles, and themselves banging the same old drum, and it falls on deaf ears. And that is what has happened. It's happened continuously. And just when we think we're building up momentum, it goes away. Football doesn't get behind it. A lot of good journalists have got behind it, but it's the same old faces. I've seen Gary Lineker today but tweet out about it and getting behind it. The likes of Dean Ashton, a prolific header of the ball, really good header of the ball, backing the campaign. That's what we need for the authorities to actually take action. But the authorities need to have a long, good, hard look at themselves and actually think. And this is it in a nutshell. What is the downside to this charter? And I defy anybody across the country to look at these points and say, well, do you know what? That's too complicated. That's too difficult. It's not. None of it is. It's a common sense charter, which I'm hoping will protect my children and generations to come.